I was compelled to work with Laurie-Ann. We had a 90-minute session where I got to pick an expert's brain about what to do and how to do things, from how to have an intro to your speaker tab to on your website, to about how to find people to speak to, and really brainstorming things like that. So overall, it has really lit a fire underneath me to be able to go out there and speak and find things to help people.
Hey, everybody. Happy Thursday. This is Laurie-Ann, and you are listening to Be in Demand. This is a podcast where I help entrepreneurs just like you leverage speaking opportunities as your best form of marketing, get positioned as the expert, and monetize your message. Today is a special speaker breakthrough session. Carolyn, you've been in my world a while. Welcome to the speaker breakthrough session.
Thank you. I'm so excited. I know I reached out and I was like, do I have a breakthrough session I can use? Because I need you desperately.
Yes, and yes. And the community calls, the speaker circle calls, you can come on as many as you want. And I haven't seen you in a little while.
I know. I see them and I need to just free that space up in my calendar so that I can always make it, because they are so helpful. Thank you. Thank you for even offering that. That's very generous.
Could you explain to me and also the people that are secretly listening to this podcast what you do and who you serve?
Absolutely. For the eavesdroppers. So I work with therapists because I am a therapist myself. And what I have discovered through my own experience and just in kind of the general work I do is that we as therapists, it's no secret we have a one-on-one ceiling on our income, right? But there tends to be this idea that the only way to make more money is to start a group or to raise your rates. And, sometimes people don't want to run a group, and sometimes people are already at the max of what rate they feel is ethical to offer to their people. And what I do then is I show therapists how to get paid time off using something a little less intense, like adding coaching or an online course. And a lot of times people will come to me and they'll say, I'm not sure which one I want to do. I just kind of have a general idea. And I say, perfect. That's where I start. I think of myself almost like the preschool for people starting online courses, because what I noticed is that we get into these, big name courses and get hung up on the part of, well, I'm not even sure what my idea is or who I want to work on it with. So I'm almost like, let's really dive in and figure out who you want to work with and how to support them the best way. Okay. So that's kind of my space, is like the preschool of therapists starting online services to get more paid time off.
Nice. Okay. So therapist is definitely your audience, and helping them. That's the end result, is to help them get paid time off, earn more money, because it's an industry that if you're not working, you're not making money.
Correct. And I focus primarily on proof of concept and launching a beta. So I'm not even saying I'll take you from $0 to $1 gazillion, right? Like, we can get there and I'm happy to help you get there, but I am so dialed in on how to get it right from the foundational piece.
Okay.
That is my passion. I see too many people skip that part and then they end up stuck there.
Okay, great. And what do you want to get out of this coaching session?
Oh, thank you so much for asking. So I have reached a point where I've got my own proof of concept. I've run my betas. I am so jazzed to share what I've got with the world. And so now I'm in more of an audience growth phase where I'm ready to go out to the world and say, hey, everyone who wasn't already my warm audience, I have tested this. It is working. You need it. Let's get together. And so what I did, so I'm reaching out, obviously, like getting on other people's stages the way that you have taught me and getting more visibility. I'm loving it. And I have had a couple experiences where people have reached out and said, hey, will you come guest on my podcast? And I say, yes, I'm so excited. Like, universe, I put this out in the world. People are coming to me. Everything's coming together so well. And the experience is just a struggle, to put it lightly. So, I'll send talking points and then the questions are not on those talking points. And I feel like I'm having to bring the conversation back to my expertise, or the person kind of goes off on another expertise of mine. which is fine. I'm comfortable talking about it, but it's hard to politely say, well, I also am doing this because I want to get in front of the right people, right? Like, I'm glad that you're asking about this expertise, but that's not my objective here.
Okay.
And so I'm happy to still do these podcasts and be, guests for people. My question is, it's tempting to be like, well, okay, great. That's just one. Like, I'll share it on social media, get that person a little bit of support, grow their audience, but it's not growing my audience with the right people. So I'd love some ideas on how to use this content without it just being like, well, that was a bummer. Like, I had fun. That was a great conversation. I'd like to monetize the content, even though it didn't quite go the way that I would have hoped.
I've got ideas.
Thank you. I knew you would.
Because podcasting is just a stage, just like speaking at an in-person stage. And when you are working either with a company for their event, you're working with meeting planners, a lot of times we have to teach these people how we work. Okay. So I think the same thing with podcast hosts. You book that appointment, you filled out their application, you show up on, whether it's Zoom or some StreamYard, there's always a chat. This has been my experience. And you can have your talking points, put it right in the chat so that you are reminding your podcast host, here's what we agreed. Here's what I shared with you beforehand. And here's what I want to share with your audience. So it's almost like you're reiterating this. Like if you did have a pre-event meeting that you would do for any speaking event, podcast included, although not all podcast hosts have those pre-event meetings. For myself, I'm usually inviting people that I know. So I already know like what we're going to talk about and all that good stuff, but they're still filling out the application. So I don't feel the need to have a pre-event meeting with my podcast guests. But if you do have that opportunity, here's what I propose to talk to. Does that sound good? You get a yes from them. Fantastic. Show up for the recording. Here's a reminder.
Yeah, the reminder is definitely helpful because we did all that. There was a pre-meeting and all of that. It just didn't go that direction once we were live. So that's a great reminder.
So when you put this in the chat, let's also make sure I'm a big fan of it being aesthetically pleasing because human beings are scanners before they are readers. So what that means is please put spaces in between the questions. Let's put them in the order that you want people to be asking you those questions. So that is one of my main ideas. Let me use the example of an in-person event. It would be like you showing up and the meeting planner saying, I know that we hired you to talk about XYZ, but we really want you to talk about life balance today. Well, I don't have the slides. Like I can talk about life balance because that's something that I've had to talk to with other therapists that I've worked with and even patients that I had, but I don't have the slides. I'm not ready for this. I don't have the proper lead magnet about life balance. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Oh, this is so good.
No meeting planner would ever do that to you because they've already advertised, hey, Carolyn's coming in to talk about XYZ. And you get there and everybody, that's the problem. That's the reason why they want to be in the room. And then you talk about ABC. Guess what happens? It doesn't matter how good of a speaker you are. It's going to be like, that sucked. That was a waste of my time because I wanted XYZ.
Yeah, that wasn't what I was offered.
Mm-hmm.
As a bait and switch.
Yeah, essentially. So even on these podcasts, let's make sure that you are teaching them like I don't want to say teaching, I want you to be sharing with the host. Here's a reminder of what we've spoken about on our pre-meeting. So I'm going to put those questions right in the chat. Can you see the chat? Fantastic. And see how that works.
I love it. Can I tell you real quick what's coming up for me with that is just in this, again, like I'm the therapist, I work with therapists, right? So a tremendous amount of the work that people don't realize they're getting with me is we've got to do this mindset stuff, right? Like, yes, the nuts and bolts of how do I create copywriting and messaging and how do I make it land and how do I put it into a beta launch? And the bulk of our time is spent on get out of your own way, right? And what's coming up for me on this is, oh, I'm the expert showing up. And I know what I need to talk about versus, well, what does this person want to hear from me? And that just is a big shift, right? Like it's that thing that we as therapists do, which is what is the other person bringing and how do I meet them where they are? Well, this is not that relationship. This is very different. This is me showing up and they're going to come to where I am because I've got something so amazing that their audience needs to hear, which I 1,000,000% know is a fact, that I cannot let them take over where it goes because this information is too good.
Yes.
Thank you for that. That was a big aha moment for me to see myself shift into, oh yeah, like I'm not here to deliver what the host wants. I'm here to deliver what their audience needs me to deliver.
Yes. And that should be what the host wants, is what their audience needs. But I will admit that there's a lot of, green podcast hosts that are out there, and you get on the show and the recording, you hit record and it's like, and they just kind of don't have like a flow. They're just kind of, let's talk about this because I know that you live on a boat, and then you go off on this tangent. But for you to be able to constantly bring the conversation back, the reason why I live on a boat is what I'm teaching other therapists to do is that you don't have to live that traditional work style. I get to travel the world with my husband because XYZ.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. That was just such a great perspective shift on the energy that I bring to these interviews.
And I'll also share one other thing because
yes, please.
A lot of times I get like the next question from the podcast host and I'll be like, before I dive into that, I want to make sure that I share with your audience these. So for me, it's usually the stats about how many speaking opportunities are available. And it's such an underestimated number as it is, because I believe that speaking needs to be redefined. So you could always, before I do that, let me share with your audience this. It's almost like the backstory before I go into this question. What does the audience really need to know? And again, we're talking about your mindset, or let's go back to your mindset and you stepping into your expertise. You are the expert. Mm-hmm. So you've heard me talk about your pre-speaking routine.
Yeah.
What's your pre-speaking routine?
I don't have one. I've heard you talk about it.
Okay.
That was a yes, no question. And I was like, oh, I get to say yes. Thank God. Woo, not caught yet, but you caught me. My pre-speaking routine is get some water and make sure my Wi-Fi is set up.
And those are very key things for you. But for me, I'll just share with you what puts me in the energy that I want to show up for whatever the speaking event, the sales call is. And so for me, the two things that work the best is movement and music. So I will go for a walk, or I will listen to music, dance around in the living room. I just get my energy up, and it's my way of showing up as the best version of Laurie-Ann. So that's what a pre-speaking routine is. If I'm at a hotel getting ready to go on stage, you will see me in some service hallway, kicking off my shoes, listening to music, and I'm just walking back and forth where nobody can see me except, employees of the hotel. But that's me getting my body ready and my energy ready. So I'll encourage you just to figure out what that routine is for yourself, and make sure you do that before every podcast interview, the pre-event meetings. How's that sound?
I love it. So these are all fantastic things. And I don't know if you have more. I don't want to interrupt you. These are all fantastic things to make sure this doesn't happen again. Yes. What can I do with the content that is already existing that I would like to not just toss out like, oh, that was a bummer, like better next time. Like I would love to still be able to use this content if it's possible. I feel like it has to be possible some way.
And what do you mean by use this content? You're going to share it with your audience because as a podcast host, you know what it's like. You want to be sharing. Mm-hmm.
I think I guess when I first reached out, I was like, okay, if I already knew the answer, what would it be? And I thought, I wonder if the person would let me get my hands on the clips where I am speaking about the thing that I had shown up believing we were going to speak about. And I don't know, like,
So here's
I don't know. Yeah. Like what I want to drive traffic to the podcast. Sure. But I also don't want people to go and then be like you said, like, this isn't what I signed up for.
Well, your audience is going to be the people who are going to go to that podcast, maybe. Okay. And on your website, you could include like, here are all the different podcasts that I've been on. But as you get really the good shows that stay on point, position you as the expert, put them at the top.
Okay.
Okay. And we'll sort of put the ones that were mediocre interviews that the host went in a different direction. We'll put them on the bottom. Because here's what I'm thinking. Somebody's going to come to your website who's considering having you. They look at this media page of yours and they see, oh my God, look at all of these podcasts that she's about. They may not even listen to any of them. But if they're going to listen to some, like you could have, like, here are my top 3 interviews. So you're doing them a favor. Yes, you're guiding them to, I want you to listen to these, but you don't have to listen to all 100. You can listen to these 3 because these are the 3 different topics that I talk about.
So in a sense, not in a sense, you're right. You're right, because in a sense, anything I drive to this podcast is already my warm audience anyway. So as far as audience growth goes, I'm really just at the mercy of how these other hosts market their things. And in a sense, I am kind of having to say, like, hopefully the universe delivers me the people that were supposed to find me through that. And it's more about the pre-work than the salvaging.
Yes.
Okay.
Let's look at it that way. And also just still sharing, like, hey, I was on this podcast. Hey, I was on this podcast. You can even keep resharing them. I don't know what your favorite platform is, whether it's Instagram stories, which is only up there for 24 hours, or if it's over on LinkedIn, thinking about, like, people are going to be seeing this and, wow, she's on a lot of podcasts.
I was about to say, it builds credibility even if people aren't listening. Okay. Yeah. I love that. Okay. That piece is good. So it builds credibility even if people don't listen. So just by way of advertising, I was on a podcast, that by itself is the salvaging thing in a sense. Okay. Yes. Thank you. Oh, that's so helpful.
You're welcome. I just always love working with you. I love it when you attend the group calls. And I just thought it was so fun that you booked this.
How had I not done this before? I was like, surely we have done this. All the times we have gotten together and had conversations and how supportive you are. I was like, there's no way I've not used this gem of a resource. So it made my day that I had not yet. And I still had it in my little Laurie-Ann bank.
Yes. So would you share with the audience 1 or 2 gold nuggets that you are walking away with today?
I absolutely will. So number 1 gold nugget is the pre-work does the work for me so that I don't ever end up in this situation again. You have made it so that the pre-work is now such an important thing. The goldest nugget, the shiniest, the goldiest and I'm a former English teacher too. So when words come out that way, I just get a huge kick out of it. But so the shiniest gold nugget is put the talking points again in the chat for the person, because that really is where it started to go sideways was, oh, I read your talking points. I can't find them right now, but I know you well enough to know what we can talk about. And I was like, great, let's go. And if I had them ready to go in that moment, just to say, no worries, here they are. Let's go over them real quick. That would have been an absolute game changer.
Fantastic.
Gold nugget number 2 is that just by way of sharing that I was on a podcast, it's evidence of the credibility that I already have.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think that's an important shift too, right? I'm so freaking credible with this. I do not doubt my expertise in this in any way. Like, what I do works, and it's so important for therapists to know about it. And this is just a way that they feel more comfortable and more able to trust me, because I know that people are getting burned out there. So for people to see, oh, I do show up and talk about this lots of places.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Would you share with everybody where they can find you, learn about you, and most importantly, listen to your podcast?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I will say the podcast first because it really is the most fun and most bingeable way to get to know me because I am very show up as I am on it. And it's called the Therapist Travel Fund. And it's just a behind the scenes, very low tech. My big thing is low tech. We're not doing websites. We're not doing funnels. We are just getting cash flow in the door while we get proof of concept. And so I really go deep into a true behind the scenes look of that experience on the Therapist Travel Fund. And the website for that is just carolynrobistow.net/secret podcast. And in it, I just talked to him if you want to reach out, I'm on Instagram at Carolyn Robistow. It's the easiest, low hanging fruit just to get in touch with me.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being so open and booking this session.
So thankful. Thank you so much. I never leave these without multiple nuggets. These are so helpful. Every conversation with you is just so great.
Thank you. Thank you. Are you tired of hearing crickets on social media? Wondering where to get seen by the right people? Or frustrated with the growth of your business? Then the Speaker Breakthrough Session is just for you. During this free 20-minute discovery call, I'll help you recognize where you're leaving money and opportunity on the table. You'll walk away with tips and a strategy to leverage speaking opportunities to get positioned as the expert, visible to the right people, and monetize your expertise. Book your call at speakandstandout.com/SBS for Speaker Breakthrough Session. Hey, before you go, quick question. Do you have a signature speech? You know, that one go-to talk that not only wows your audience, but also grows your business every time you deliver it? If you don't, or if yours could use a little polishing up, my program, In Demand Signature Speech, is designed to help you create a talk that's clear, impactful, and 100% you. No cookie cutter scripts here, just a proven framework that works every time. And guess what? The wait list is open. Joining gets you early access, exclusive bonuses, and the first chance to snag your spot when the doors do open. So if 2025 is the year that you finally step into the spotlight and grow your visibility through speaking, head on over to speakandstandout.com/SS for signature speech and get on the wait list now. Your audience is waiting. Let's make your message unforgettable.